Okay, y'all, coming with LoveCraft Country, Season 1, Episode 9. And if you haven't bought into why should I watch this, I don't like sci-fi, I don't like horror. I've always explained I don't either. I'm actually quite scary. I prefer to watch it in the daylight. If I watch it at night, the thing with the eyes all over for the monster, it just irks my skin and my soul on a whole nother level. I'll start itching. I'll start thinking about it even when I close my eyes. But tonight's episode, last week's episode, and the week prior, so 7 had a little more sci-fi than you may want to. 8 was more like witchcrafty, voodoo-y, but not really. More so witchcrafty and spells. The hybrid, the continuum, the thread that holds it all together. The racial disparities our people endure within the United States of America. Even, Jim Crow lasted more than just a decade or two. I don't know how that just doesn't get understood by so many people, but just think 1865 to 1980. There is but no, we have the Civil Rights Movement. Oh, we have the Voter Rights Act. Honey, enforcing that was a whole nother story, and it took a while. Just like Reconstruction, it took a while. You had those who are part of the majority, the Caucasoids, who felt like, look, we don't need to follow the letter of the law. We'll change the rules and make it someplace else. And tonight's episode dealt with the Tulsa riots of 1921. We get the return of Dee's mama, Diana mama, Hippolyta, returns like a mother knows her child needs me. But she didn't know something was wrong with Dee. She just popped up. What's wrong with Dee? And everybody was shocked. Like, wait, what now? I didn't see it coming either. Don't ask me why I didn't, but I didn't. So, let's back it up. We start off with Tick, Montrose, and Letty all blaming each other for how Dee kept trying to appease and talk to them that day, and everybody was dismissive of her or not fully paying attention to her. She was handling her own issues and really didn't speak up. I was shocked. But I understand. When you think ain't nobody gonna believe you, you ain't got nothing to say, folks. You like, whatever, I'll just deal with it myself. And that baby did try and deal with it last episode. Montrose even broke in and stopped her from trying to fight the little girls, the pickaninnies that we all are scared of, but they can keep a tune and a beat. Ain't that some stuff? No one else could see him but Dee. And she was trying to beat him with the metal pole. That child was on it. That child even drew artwork to tell the story of what she was seeing in the event she didn't make it. I don't know. But that was very smart and astute of her. Hello? So we see her dead, laid out on the sofa with her arm shriveled up as if death has hit the left arm more than anything else. Or if you get a poison infection and how it just shrivels and dries first. Well, anywho, and her hair is all picked out and she's starting to turn to look like one of the pickaninnies at some point. But not exactly. 10% in kind of thing. You can still see her because it gets worse as you go through. It takes Ruby to tell everybody, look here, stop trying to blame each other. Y'all had something to do. This wasn't it, so move on. So they then start to debate how can they get Christina to help. Tick has decided he will bargain or barter with Christina. Come help me get my cousin back into the realm of life, and I'll give you Titus's pages. So Leticia comes clean, and she says, hey, I already traded this. Wait, what? So Montrose jumps on his high horse when she explains, look, Tick, I tried to trade the pages for your safety, to make you invulnerable to whatever's coming. She wouldn't do it, but she offered it for me. Now, this is where I get real judgmental and questioning everybody. So why are you upset, Tick, when you know already she's pregnant? Leticia probably took it because she is pregnant, trying to protect the baby. Montrose, you even know she's pregnant because Tick told you last episode. Like, what? You even know the child's name is going to be George Freeman. So Montrose gets to yelling, hooping, and hollering. If you don't know that, find some Southerners. But hooping and hollering like he ain't got good sense and wants to try and make it out. So you just sold us down the river. We just blah, 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 blah. I'm like, Montrose, you've been so self-serving. You killed the dual spirit indigenous person. You threw the book in fire. Child, you ran around through the Harrison Ford Goonies setup like you was the only person who had to be Jackie Robinson. If you don't quit, the one time this child did something and you know it's to protect your grandchild, now you got everything to say. So of course Ruby, built like me, jumps up and holler. Well, Letitia's like, don't you dare. I'm mad nobody else jumped on that. Like, well, we already know. Or what you finna say, pregnant? Because think about it. Black folks will finish your conversation. Let me strike that. It's not about black. People will finish your conversation or finish the sentence if they think they know. And then if they feel like, wait, I made 3 attempts, you should just tell me what you was going to say. So, like, come on. That part of reality seemed to have just dissipated. So let's play along. Christina is mentioned through Ruby. She'll do it for me. Baby Montrose shot a look like, oh, but nobody questioned Ruby. Why would Christina do anything for you? Nobody. And nobody questioned how Ruby know what's going on around here. So, hey, maybe they'll assume Letitia told her. I don't know. Because as of now, we still don't even know if Ruby has been informed. Christina bought the house, or basically put the house in Letitia's name. So don't even get me started with that. What's really going on under the underlines here? Christina Brainwood shows up, says she can't undo what's been done, but she can reverse and like a reset, a soft reset. But ultimately, the girl's gonna die again. So I was like, oh, child, look, the only reason why it registered to me because I have Sprint. And whenever something goes wrong with these phones, Sprint will always holler, take the battery out, let it do a soft reset. Boop, doop, doop. So anyway, moving past that, that's more of a commentary on Sprint than the doggone show. Because I think this episode was quite inspirational, heartbreaking, and just also not educational for the historical aspect, but educational to learn the trauma or better understand the psyche of Montrose, to better understand why he's the way he is. Montrose had a childhood we had heard about, which is the boy who got shot in the head during the Tulsa riots right in front of him. But the way they reenacted it, this is where Dee comes in. What's wrong with my child? And she learns. So Dee is like, you know what? Christina will be here for what you need to do. Christina leaves, goes off and see the police chief. Yep, I'm jumping around. Put a pin in that Montrose story. I'll be back. Goes and see the police chief. He's like, got other little deputies with him. I don't even know what they're calling. They're not sheriffs, but whatever. Officers of a lower rank around him. And his body is like exploding within itself. And they don't know what to do. And they're like, we did the spell right. And then it's like, we can't kidnap another nigger. YouTube, I use the N-word because that is actually the word in the script. And that is a period piece for how they actually referred to the colored folks, which, as I know, to be black people. At that point, Christina walks in as the boy version of herself. And they're like, we killed you. She's like, you know what? Because of his death, I've learned bringing him back. Every time I go back into my form and leave his form, it kills him all over again. He revisits his death. But instead of seeing it as anything other than an opportunity, I could see it for the curse that it is. And I'm going to curse you. So she cursed the captain. The captain had already figured it out. That's why the spell wasn't working. They apparently are basically amputating black people, killing them, or falsely accusing them and arresting them to use their bits and pieces over here in every flagrant disregard for human life for witchcraft. And we know they've done it for medicine. If you don't believe me, look up Night Doctors and John Hopkins. Look them up for New Orleans. Anytime you have a city with a teaching school. Ooh, Marie Laveau fought against Madame Delalaurie. Look that up. She wasn't even a doctor. She was just out here creating potions and BS using the enslaved blood in their body parts to try and fashion different things like a centaur. American Horror Story did a really good job, the Coven season 3, and then the follow-up to that, and addressing that with Angela Bassett and Kathy Bates. Yeah. So anyway, back to Lovecraft Country. The situation with the captain is resolved with him dying in the closet on site. Christina essentially murdered him off. And like she said, she had to be content with, you won't have 1,000 deaths like you've given William, but y'all get to enjoy this one. Then she goes back over to south side of Chicago, and that's when we see Montrose explaining to Tick, I may not be your daddy. So giving my blood to Christina, I may not be her closest relative. Essentially, he's saying you actually may be the closer relative between the two of us, which they could have flushed that out better, but whatever. Tick is now, of course, taking it to heart, having a hard time digesting it all. Like, oh, all the years I sat here wishing Uncle George was my daddy. And Mama would intervene and I forgave them. But, of course, Leticia overhears it again. I said, she always walks in the most uncomfortable times and conversations. Hell, girl, if you're going to be his woman, be his woman. Walk on in and have that conversation. Look, baby, let's focus on this right now, okay? Let's process that later. I know those were not the words people used at that time, and I'm not of that era. But the point is, you there, you might as well speak on it. It's uncomfortable for everybody, even us at home watching this. And anyway, she came in to let her know Christina was back, and they ready to start the spell. Dee's mother, Hippolyta, standing at the top of the bed over her with Christina. Christina's like, we need that blood? Baby. She didn't even say 1, 2, 3, cut. She started calling the spell, slit that woman's hand straight across. I said, Lord. To me, those are some of the worst cuts, like a paper cut or pulling a hangnail. Ooh, just poke me a different kind of way and let me spray the blood, like Supernatural, or, you know, if you ever watch the Winchester Boys, that's what I do watch. That's okay. But just straight across, that's going to sting from here on out. And I bet you then they was using that real alcohol, the kind my parents love, that burned through like bleach and formaldehyde. At any rate, Dee is then activated of some sort. Like she's screaming and pulling like she's one of the pickaninnies ready to do something. And she's turning. The maggots will show up. The flies are going away. That bothered me all the way around. I was like, ugh. They need to give warnings. Like right now I'm scratching my arm. So excuse me, that's why I'm moving. Because I'm just seeing it all over. Well, anywho, that buys them some time. Thankfully, Hippolyta went through all of that time travel in episode 7 and got her own moxie for herself because she did what any parent do. Baby, I'm going to save my child. We finna go back over there to that time machine. Oh, it's broke. We ain't got the key. She said, I got my own key. Well, it's broke. I'll fix it. Like she is really the walking, talking engineer of this episode. And she ain't here for whatever your weak excuses are or your trip ups at the time. She's like, I'm a mama. This is what it is. And this is what it's going to be. Now, what else we got? That's it. She wasn't trying to hear no excuses. That station wagon can get around town, honey. Because I can remember cars that I had. My very first car was a Ford Fairmont. It was one of my elder cousins was so old that she was called an aunt. And we used to push that car from New Orleans to Mexico, all around. And I promise you, even at 55, 60, that felt like the max. But they be making Woody get around, baby. Because they made it back to that time machine. She opened up the spot. She made herself a motherboard. They had never heard such words. She showed her wrists. They were still glowing. She had the chips in her. She attached it. She put the power to send them back to Tulsa. Told them what to do, which apparently we all seem to agree with all time travel. You can't go messing with things that happened then because it'll impact the future. At any rate, she sent them back. So, Tick, Montrose, and Leticia went back. I was confused when I saw the dress on Leticia, but she had some, like, 1962 kids, but worse, like the Converse looking style kids. And, of course, we later see Tick's great-great-grandmother, or no, just grandmother, noticed those shoes to be like, this girl ain't from around here. What's going on kind of thing. At any rate, Montrose has a lot of traumatic PTSD in effect. He just does. And now we can see what the issue was. Montrose, as a child, knew if he didn't know he was gay, he was questioning his gayness or his sexuality or his gender loving or his gender likes. But at any rate, his father caught him trying on George's prom jacket. I was like, okay, what's the big deal? But then he said also the flower. He was like, oh, the corsage he was going to give Tick's mom. So now Tick has to really wrestle with, wait a minute, so my mama cheated on you with George? It still ain't clear to me. Drop in the comments and let me know. I'm thinking George and the girl got pregnant, but they were okay with letting Montrose be named as the father so everybody could back off or give him cover for his sexuality. Then that way it wouldn't be an issue going forward. Because, baby, when I tell you, when that boy's daddy came out telling him, pick a switch. Ooh, look, I don't think I ever had to do it, but I most definitely have seen my cousins, siblings, multiple people pick switches. We had a belt. That's just what it was. You was going to get that black leather belt. Well, I had a belt because I have older brothers and sisters old enough to be my parents, and they make it real clear to my parents I didn't get hit or whooping like they did, which was apparently at some point they used Hot Wheel tracks, belts, stitching cords, whatever they had, they used it, and that's what it was. I was very proud of Montrose for not going to get his own switch, so that daddy went and broke off a tree limb and whooped him with it all over his body. And Chick's mama came out, his now deceased wife. Well, you gonna stop this? Why are you hitting on him? And she called out the daddy, and then she called out George. Why don't you ever defend him? You don't never get whoopings like he do. You don't get treated like he do. So they daddy threatened to whoop her. Well, her daddy came outside on the porch. You can do what you want with your boys. You're going to leave mine right there alone. I was like, hello. They were neighbors. At any rate, Montrose lets us know she was actually off base. George defended him relentlessly. George made sure to always take up for him. So now we understand the idea was, or we no longer have to speculate. Montrose's parent picked up on his sexuality or his questioning gender. He even turned to George and said, okay, at least it's nice to have one other man in the house, or going to have a man in the house. I was like, oh. I wasn't born then. I dang on well wasn't raising kids in 1921, and I've never been a man. I just hate that any person had to suffer through life thinking something was really wrong with them and having to hide themselves and take cover for protection. Simple as that. Montrose has already shared he had a pastor in his life who got, people intimated he was with another man. And they basically came and took him, gave him a lobotomy, cut out part of his brain, and committed him to an asylum. Just for not being caught, not being seen, not admitting to he was with the man. Just that there were whispers in the community that this was taking place. And I'm pretty sure they did it with the sanction of the law, like well within the letter of the law. And I'm pretty certain enough people don't realize how many laws were on the books regarding the maltreatment of homosexuals, gays. What else would they call them? Excuse me, the word eludes me right now, but I mean, it was really codified in all the states and U.S. territories. For as far back as I can recall, and I can give you some treaties work, even in 1800s, it was on the books. It was not for play. The next thing that was on the book was how we could commit people. That is not a joke. That is not for play. And you did not have to have a medical degree, Lord, for whatever that was back then, just hokum. You didn't have to have even medical experience. You could be part of the police force and you decided someone needs to go to the asylum. That's where the hell they went. So that's worth talking about. Because I know for me, that is one of my biggest fears. Not just a fear, it's like one of those things is going to irk me. Now, if I did something to get myself there, that's fine. But you can't restrict my movement and my freedom. That will push me off a cliff and drive me insane on a whole nother level. I couldn't be a lot of people through time, but that hold on to that hope and their faith and gets them there. So moving on to Montrose explaining, and Montrose disappears. You could tell he was focused on going to stop what was happening. But I even projected, let me guess, Montrose is going to go try and stop George from dying and he's going to mess everything up. Because we've seen Montrose do it in 3 different episodes where he's self-serving. In this instance, he just saw it as there was more to the story he never told everybody about the young man who got shot in the head, his friend. He was a boy who understood his gayness and he wanted Montrose to own his. Montrose would not. So what happened was while they were standing around talking at the park, all around town, everybody's getting notices the prom is canceled tonight. It's been canceled. So this tells you how intentional things were for the riot. Those Caucasians knew they were going in and kill and create mayhem and murder on a treacherous level with full intent, meaning this is truly prosecutable in the law, criminal and civil. At any rate, kept the kids out the school event. Everybody's at home. They started to shut down phone lines and had already started killing people when Tick's mom and George left on bicycles to go find Montrose. Montrose is talking to the boy, and now he's explaining to us and Tick how everything's going down. Tick is trying to convince him, you can't go talk to him and interfere under no circumstances because this keeps me from existing. This keeps my child from existing. Your grandchild will never be. So Montrose still looks like he wants to go over there. He doesn't, though. The boy, he explains, he just wished he could stop the process. Tick ultimately says, well, this is where we are, but, and they both said together. He never explained this before, but a black guy came up like Jackie Robinson, knocking off heads out of nowhere. And he didn't know who this man was, but he saved all of their lives. Because George and Tick's mother shows up and start fighting the people, fist to fist. And like he said, oh, if they had more than one gun, we would have all been dead. But when I tell y'all they shot that boy right dead in the center of his head, between his eyes, and blood and everything, projectile went all over Montrose, it was hard to watch. These are just kids. Like, literally real kids. Like, yeah, even if they were teenagers then, this was still a time where innocence, they were just innocent. I mean, man, it's just, sorry, it's really emotional for me. But here's the thing. They identify that Montrose and Tick both know this line that the man said. Like, I got you, son, don't worry. And he was looking like, well, who is that? We must have messed up the timeline. We must have done something. Come to find out, the done something part is Tick. Because a bat just rolls up to Tick's foot. He goes over and starts bashing heads. He really does. He even hit the girl who was over there harassing them with him too. But he didn't cut her in the head and break her neck. He punched her twice in the stomach and she went down. He moved on. They do a good job acting with this like mayhem of a fight. In the riot, you could really see the and it's like the barely contact. I was shocked how many text messages I got from friends tonight and even family. Shout out to y'all for calling and texting about this episode. Yes, it was heart-wrenching for me. I had to watch 90 Day Fiancé the other way to calm down, to get rid of some emotions before I get on camera, because I know I will easily cry, especially when you know the law just didn't protect us as it should have. But more importantly, when you see that they use the law and work within the law and outside the letter of the law through arrests, prosecution, incarceration, and then enforcement of what they want the society to look like and how they want to mistreat people. At any rate, Tick saves the day, lays everybody out. We go to Leticia. She has now been chased by this crowd, and Tick's grandfather catches her, help her into the house. You know, he actually both grandfathers, Montrose's father and his mother's father. And, you know, Montrose's daddy wants answers now. I said, oh, Lord, this man kind of like me. Ooh, girl, catch your breath another time. Tell us what's going on. Who out there? How many of them out there? So she finally is able to speak. But you can see in her wheels are spinning. She's not trying to give them too much information. So she doesn't change the course of the history. Because everybody in his family on his mother's side was supposed to die in that house in the fire that night. And it was shocking because they all had guns. Like her daddy went and said, let me get the kids, and reached in the drawer and got out 4 more hand pistols. I was like, looks like my daddy and my uncles for sure. But at any rate, I was just like, wait, what? But anyway, grandmama caught on like, what's going on? I ain't got no book here except the good book. I said, ooh, baby, if they make some bold-faced lies, old folks always lying to you, but you better not tell them no stories. You hear me? At any rate, she goes through the house. She talks to the little sister. The sister wants to make sure she can see her sister again so she can apologize for being for a brat, because she actually liked George too. She doesn't want her family to find out. I was like, oh, that's so cute. So she reassures her things will be fine. She ends up upstairs. Grandma's like, what you looking for? What's going on? Put this bullet between your eyes. She tries to explain to her she's from the future. She's like, I knew someone right about you when I saw those shoes. I was like, I wondered if anybody was going to call out those shoes. At any rate, Leticia is able to convince her. She pulls a actual book out, the book of David, letter, Adam, I don't know, from behind a picture. Grandmama figures it out. Whoa. Well, mama figures it out. The mothers figured it out. We're going to die here, ain't it? Yeah. So she tells her something, you need to go before you have to die too, while you can still get out. She's like, I'm protected with a magic spell. So she holds her hand and actually, I guess, gives some comfort while she burns alive. It was just too difficult for me. Even I was like, human nature is to try and survive. You're going to try and run down the stairs, even if they shoot you going down the stairs. You don't just... I can't. And I do know that there are men, like we saw growing up, from Taiwan and in China who stood in front of the tank and got rolled over. The monk who set himself on fire in Tiananmen Square. You know, so many things you do see in terms of human protest where they're willing to give the ultimate sacrifice of themselves for the greater good. Oh, child. I'm glad Letitia was able to reach her with, look here, this impacts my child that's coming, your grandson. So basically, grandmother says, you know, my faith will be born through him. And it really touched me because it's so true. It's like when you pray for a job and you finally get that job. And I don't know how specific your prayers can be or your wishes are, but I'm real specific. And I actually intended on moving to another city. It took me 6 years, but I finally got there. And when I got there, I thought I would be immediately with this Fortune 100 company. There's nothing else to talk about. I'm getting to the C-suite. That took another 6 years. But I just realized this week, you know, this is the exact thing I prayed for even 6 years ago. So it's like, I guess for me, 6 is the number. I don't like the continuity there. But anyway, back to the story of Montrose and Tick head back so they can jump back through the portal, and they notice his disappearing. Letitia's nowhere to be seen at the theater, and they're wondering what's going on. Tick goes through. He works for Hippolyta. She can't hold it open. Baby, at some point, her hair turns blue. She's foaming at the mouth. She's putting in the work. She's trying to hold it open. Letitia come walking through the fire because now we see the plane going overhead as we heard from the Gap Band. You dropped the bomb on me. They dropping the bombs. But she's just walking. I want to be like, Negro, if you don't run your little narrow behind to that theater so everybody can get home in one piece. At any rate, they all make it back. Hippolyta's able to save the day, and they have the Book of Adam. Now we get the previews from next week. We have already called out Ruby for still running off with Christina to question, is she using you? She got to be. And Christina, Ruby's like, look here, Letitia, you need to come get in with me. I don't understand what Ruby has such a problem understanding about what's going on with Tick. Like, to me, Tick is less suspicious than Christina. But whatever. Ruby ain't too stupid because she knew the question with Christina when she got her along. Like, oh, I was your backup plan. You only reached out to me in case you couldn't work them. That's what that was about. So Christina's like, no, actually, everything I've done has been really super planned, but you are a caveat now getting in the way because apparently she's trying to profess she cares for the girl. So it's like, you're an unplanned part of this. But what she was able to do is get Tick to agree to show up on the autumn equinox night with no complaint. So next week, we'll see them fighting everybody and hear how that goes. So with that being said, I look forward to hearing what people have to say about this. I can't make jokes about it. It's too serious for me. I could talk another hour, if not 5 hours. I won't. If you made it past 4 minutes, I'm impressed. Thank you. Please subscribe. Please share to others. This is LoveCraft Country. If you've been in doubt what to watch, what to see, what to do, this is it. This, as I've said to friends, shows our history with power. They're not sitting down and laying over and taking any of that so that we're not our ancestors. You're right. Because I most definitely, my mother and father, my father is now my ancestor. But my elders, I have not. My uncles are still here who have fought back with fire and bullets from people who tried to oppress them. My mother has fought back through Jim Crow, picking cotton, walking 2 left shoes the right way. And that was her goal in life, to make sure her kids never had to do such. My siblings integrated their elementary school. You hear that? My siblings. So, yeah, I don't know how old y'all think I am, but I lay it out there, good and 40. My siblings are old enough to be my parents. My mama delivered me 3 days later. She was at my brother's high school graduation. What I can tell you is this ain't no game. So, yeah, 1965 may be the signing of it. 1979, people still wasn't voting if you was black and a woman in Louisiana. And that ain't up for debate. I got the cards. We got the paperwork. It ain't even a game. It's not. So, this is why I can talk all day about it. This is why I can also say, you know, it shows us the psyche and the trauma that goes with surviving that. Montrose had every right to be as worked up as he is about things. Basically an alcoholic. Because if you remove his sexuality and how that played out in his life, you still have to deal with this man survived the Tulsa, Oklahoma bombing. They were part of the affluent Negro community there. None of them were struggling. His wife came from a place nobody survived that whole house. She was an orphan overnight because everybody died in that house fire. I don't know. You have to give them props for having, men and women willing to fight to see another day and protect their own. With that being said, I hope y'all tune in. If nothing else, please subscribe, share the video. I appreciate any feedback you have.